Zenshiki arrived at the track field early. Early for Shovanti, at least. A cursory look around the grounds confirmed only a handful of cameras, which made sense. Kalira favoured music and spent her time with the Academy Choir. Undoubtedly, the amphitheatre was riddled with cameras, but after a long walk and careful listen, she picked up 6. As a whole, the campus was a sprawling expanse encircling the bay. Heavily forested, there were ample blind spots. Not that it made sense to attack Citri/Delicious openly. Even done out of sight, those cameras would certainly determine their location, and an investigation could easily land at her doorstep. The knowledge that someone was actively trying to track her turned a harmless lark into a cumbersome situation, ripe for difficult questions. Citri/Delicious would probably have to be taken upon her last day here. The yacht race would offer possibilities. The event would draw a crowd. Was she missed amongst the visitors? Had she attended? Was she still on campus, or had she departed early? Given her limited and otherwise unremarkable acquaintance with the Urbian, there will be no valid motives. There might be accusations, but accusations without proof were meaningless, and she had carefully examined every plan she would need. Her Hahakt was fond of such things, calling the exercises if-then statements. A situation wherein extraneous possibilities were logically carved away until the final conditions set the outcome. She had her goal, that Kalis needed something appropriate as a proposal gift, yet her youngest sibling was too awkward and inexperienced with anything but a sniper rifle. A failure to secure a courtship gift could see past spurn them.
If our proposal is seen as half-hearted and insecure, then any sensible male would spurn it.
That could not be allowed. The conditions set had to be changed.
If there is no room for failure, then every problem in her way must have its solution.
Gaining a proper Murakashan, the gift of spirit, was essential to complete their courtship of past, and the Citri girl was fiercely competitive. That made her entirely appropriate, though lingering questions could not be ignored. The Shovanti had no traditions for these matters, but did Urbians? Since the Shovanti had a jailer-captive tradition, what would be the appropriate recompense to Sephir? Was Citri, as she suspected, a lean meat? Having circled the track, she waited. It had rained last evening, and the gravel crunched underfoot while the grass glimmered with a sheen of frost. The sun would burn it away by that afternoon, but the morning remained crisp, the ground actually frozen in places. She could actually see her breath, which was something of a novelty. Closing her eyes, she listened for the sound of approaching steps. She smelled the Urbian first. It was a velvety aroma, slightly spicy and piquant. Zenshiki found herself salivating as her quarry jogged into view, then waved before pelting across the greenway.
Good morning. Wow, I had no idea the L campus was this big. It's a good thing. I found the biology building yesterday. I bet you could get lost for a week in the forest. Perhaps you could go explore.
Any member of a warband needed to operate as a competent hunter, but some people were elusive and difficult to hunt. The trouble with her Hahakt was a case in point.
Really? You know, that sounds great. The others are focused on getting the sea lance ready for the race. Everything around Rizm is a completely different biome, you know. I haven't been out in a temperate woodland in ages.
Citri/Delicious wore a heavy shirt against the morning chill, but peeled down to her track shorts, revealing long, muscular legs.
Why don't we walk back that way when we're done? I just love old grove deciduous forests. I could lose myself forever walking through all this. But if you insist on laying on the platter, it would be rude to refuse.
Citri bounced from foot to foot in excitement, peering at the forest. Zenshiki shook her head, trying to banish the thought of the Urbian sticking a fruit in her mouth and offering up a carving knife. It yet remained for Citri/Delicious to win the competition. Then, and only then, could she be considered as legitimate prey. Citri/Delicious swiveled her hips as she limbered up, and she nodded towards the track.
I was surprised to find out the Academy had a practice Korova. Do you want to try a recourt first?
Eyeing the length, Zenshiki calculated the odds. So long as she gave her best, it was fair. Warming up was optional, and while it would enhance her performance, such options were not required.
I am fine with a competitive jump by your rules. Okay, if you're sure.
Citri set her gear aside and beamed.
Show me what you've got.
Shinchiki eyed the end of the track, considering the target. The automaton would move down the track at a set speed and attempt to gore the leaper on blunted horns. Vaulting as a sport seemed frivolous, but she'd done much the same in her training as a kid. Agility in both fall and zero gravity was a survival skill.
No, I prefer to shoot the beast and be done with it. Dark mother, I miss my flechette gun. Go!
Nostalgia did not put Urbion on the table, and Shinchiki tensed in readiness as Citri/Delicious released the mechanical Korova. The automaton sped down the track and she pelted toward it, timing her jump. Diving into a cartwheel, she thrust upwards and twisted, reversing in midair. Momentum carried her over the rising horns, and she pushed down on its back, tucked into a double roll, and planting herself on the far side of the beast as it sped past. It had been a good effort, and she had to admit the exercise had been enjoyable.
Basting her at her own game has merit. Besting. I meant besting.
For her part, Citri/Delicious looked impressed. The girl was all fangs as she hopped over, though the expression was lacking in challenge.
Come on! You mean to tell me you've never done Korova leaping before? That was amazing, except,
She drew a breath, feeling somewhat winded from the run. Or perhaps it was anticipation.
Except? Well, you took a running start and that's points off. You're also not supposed to touch the Korova in a vertical leap. In a competition, it costs you tons of points. Even so, wow. I've never seen someone do a reversal like that, and the way you use your tail. I never even considered what that could do to someone's balance.
It is called an asaiak,
she supplied. The Chauvanti at Sochet Pantechnical had taken delight in calling it a tail, implying she was some sort of domesticated animal. Here at the Academy, the girls in her circle of allies had readily made the adjustment, but denying a resentment at her experience would be pointless.
Asaiak, got it. Sorry, I'm still learning my way around Andy's terms when he isn't speaking Vatica. I hope that wasn't some huge insult, was it?
To her credit, she looked distressed at the error. Possibly her species accepted their role as imperial clients, or perhaps she was naturally gregarious. She remained prey, but it made the girl tolerable.
No insult was intended, so none is taken. It was simply imprecise.
In a sense, it was a shame she smelled delectable. Perhaps just an ear. Shinchiki blinked twice and focused.
So, my jump would earn few points for the incorrect form. In a competition. Besides, it's my fault for not telling you. I mean, you said you could jump, but I didn't know you could leap. I see.
All that remained was for the Urbian girl to complete a capable jump, and the test would be done. The captive would prove herself.
Your turn. Great!
Citri flounced, which made her ears bob before scampering back to the start of the track.
I'll reset the run. I'm so glad you have a track.
Shinchiki resisted the urge to pounce as the Urbian pelted away. Disposing of the body could be left to the sea life, hypothetically. Until Citri bested her, her status as Sephir's captive made her person sacrosanct. And the Urbian was a sentient being filled with hopes and dreams. Past was a sensitive male. He might understand if their courtship only offered an ear. Possibly a nice restaurant would suffice. After all, there were codes to how civilized Pezrin dealt with captives, and it begged the question. The wind changed direction, and the Urbian scent washed over her.
Would Past prefer sirloin or ribs?
Citri braced with her shoulders back and head high, and began her run.
So you're the King Meltzy, realtor to the stars,
Sashan said, looking over the otherwise unprepossessing Chauvanti. Gore found himself a little bemused. Portly and middle-aged, the little Mel looked staggeringly ordinary. But for the bright pink jacket, Melvy was a far cry from the sort of person Gore imagined would be involved in a high-pressure game like real estate. Yet, however mild he seemed on the outside, the little man had a brassy centre. Yeah. The king looked sash up and down, sipping on a Gojaka fizz. It wasn't just past 9 and breakfast was being served, but it was always drink o'clock somewhere. What about it?
I, didn't expect you to be so tall,
Sash said, just before Ratch elbowed her in the ribs. Sure, whatever. Melcy rolled his eyes and waved at one of the empty booths. The Sea of Souls had barely opened, and there were plenty to choose from. Come on and plant yourselves, let's talk business. You're interested in the place over on Malkin Baird?
We are,
Sash nodded. For their meeting, she'd appointed herself the money, and the other girls nodded along. Great. That's fine. Nice little fixer-upper there. Strong bones. Good potential. Melcy looking as if he was agreeing with himself. Problem being, you got no cred, no cash, no tolls with a whole lot of zeros, if your husband's giving it to me straight.
Oh, he's not.
Shrek jumped as her shin was kicked, and she glared before offering up a pained smile.
He's not wrong. You told him you could do something for us.
Yeah, I might be able to see my way clear. You're just in time, really. The City Land Bank was about to pull the place, so I pulled some strings and can get you a close in 3 days, right? At least, if you can do something for me first.
The little shill folded his hands over his belly.
Hypothetically, of course.
Hypothetically?
Rash leaned in.
Depending on.
People with empty pockets got all kinds of problems. I'm a regular charitable benefactor. I am, but even I have issues, you know. I got this client who shall remain nameless. Nobody wants to touch her stuff. Toxic, you know. Radioactive.
Melcy gave them a long look at their expressions.
Not literally. Just to stink about the owner. Media stuff, so there's a pressing need to liquidate the assets in the portfolio. Am I right?
Okay,
Sash replied warily. Gore was pretty sure none of them got it, but it sounded like the other shoe was about to drop. Melcy did not disappoint.
Thing is, insurance companies pay up. Let's say someone crashes an air car into your porch, yeah? Nice car facade, and boom, trashed. So what are you gonna do except call, am I right? The insurance geek sends someone by, maybe just asks for pictures, then authorize payment. Say it's gonna cost you 40 large to fix, so they cut you the 40 and you're set.
Gore was no math whiz, but 40 from 40 was still 0.
so what's the catch?
It's not like you're gonna put the same quality porch back on, right? Say it's something in a nice wood veranda, maybe it sets you back 10 and you pocket 30. Maybe take a little loss when the place sells, but if you need cash now, it's just the cost of business. Everybody walks away happy.
It felt as if the great buffet of life had just been served, and Gore's eyes opened to the possibilities, but Shashan was faster off the mark.
And your client wants this done, hypothetically?
Hey, it's all hypothetical in real estate,
Melcy said expansively.
Nothing's done until everyone signs, but my client...
Who shall remain nameless,
Shrag muttered.
Who shall remain nameless, Melcy nodded, wants to get off shill in 3 days flat. So, the god is willing, good things could happen, and you could be closing on your own little piece of heaven in 3 days. Or, my client has to leave shill an unhappy person and life goes on. Am I right?
It sounded too good to be true, but someone else's problems could be their solution.
Fixing problems is our new line of work.
Beautiful. Melcy beamed, as he sipped contentedly on his drink.
The thing is, it can't be anything too much. See, my client only had time to put up a couple of model homes. Maybe catch fire in an accident, because having them all go up in flames would have folks screaming arson. There'd be an investigation. Constables asking questions. It's no good for anybody except the barristers, am I right? So just something limited.
And everybody's happy, Sash said dryly. Hypothetically.
Exactly.
Melcy's head bobbed like a boy at low tide.
Even the insurance gals have to show they come to the rescue, or who needs them?
That's great for your client, who shall remain nameless, but what about us? That doesn't get us our house.
Eh? Easy stuff. Things fall into place. I call the land bank and get you an appointment for 9 a.m. 3 days hence. Tell them I have a nice family of,
Melcy looked discomfited for a minute and waved a hand.
I don't mean to be insensitive, but the forms, you know.
Pezrin, Sash replied.
Pezrin. Wonderful people looking to settle down, and I tell them you're just what they're looking for. The capital doesn't want brownfield sites popping up, am I right? If things are taken care of, then you lovely ladies will be. You get in, free and clear, and the only hitch is you fix the place up in the next year.
Melcy looked like a very happy rotund clam.
Everybody walks away a winner. No unhappy faces.
Gore frowned. The problem was the Duchess had also given them a job 3 days from now. Still,
so I could just show up and sign, right?
Sorry, chum, no can do. So the bank sees you're a family. Part of the deal, eh? At least 3 of you gotta be there so one can co-sign. Land bank homes only go to families. Minimum of 3.
Melcy looked at them owlishly.
This will not present a problem, will it?
Damn it. They were going to be fixers, so they needed to fix their own shit first. Gore leaned forward and put his hands on Sash and Raksh's arms. I'm sure my ladies can sort it out. If I don't need to be there, it's all good, right?
Yeah, sure. Everybody understands if the little man stays home.
Melcy winked knowingly.
3 of you show up to sign, and if my client's a happy woman, I give the thumbs up to my friends at the land bank.
Gore could see worry on Sash, Raksh and Shrak's faces, but he waved it off. Don't worry, it's an easy job. Mr. Melcy and his client will be happy. I'll take care of the other thing and show what a wonderful family we are.
How do we know everything will go to plan?
Raksh said warily.
If your client's happy, we want to be happy too.
Don't worry.
Melcy waved his drink at her.
I've been doing this forever. I'm practically a public benefactor.
Gore found himself nodding along, the sort of action where you didn't have to skip town. The notion had appeal.
So this place is in such a terrible state. Could you tell us where it is, just in case we wanted to see if there are any deals there? Hypothetically.
Melcy tossed out a business card on the table. Raksh picked it up and blinked.
Bogosi Meadows, as in Lilo Bogosi? The one with the Rakiri suit?
What can I say?
Melcy waved a hand airily.
The woman has troubles, but a gifted vet. Performed a miracle for my niece's pet bluefish.
Ah!
Sitri screamed, crying out in raw agony as a blinding pain shot through her torn and rendered flesh. The scream filled the air with raw pain. Sinshiki flinched.
I told you to keep your weight on my shoulder. And I told you I'm... Fuck!
She yowled, as she tried to put weight on her sprained ankle.
Fucking blighted goddess damn Deadwood! That hurts! Given the swelling, you probably got a bad sprain.
Sinshiki pulled Delicious's arm across her shoulder, trying to ignore the girl's scent. The situation was maddening. Unfamiliar with the northern climate and the chilly weather, the girl had planted her foot on a patch of ice during her landing and tumbled badly, twisting her ankle as she went down. Against all odds, Sinshiki had won, thanks to Citri's botched landing, though at least the Kurova missed.
If the captive is not superior, then I cannot hunt her. If I cannot hunt her, then Kalis' odds of a good gift are marginal. If this is screwed up, then we will not be joined. And since Past is the boy I want, and the only eligible Pesrin for 100 light years, then I will not get laid. Shit. How much farther to the clinic?
Citri/Delicious held on tightly, hopping on her good foot as they made their way back.
It is near. They'll have you deboned in no time. Deboned?
Delicious laughed, then winced again.
Ow! That's a bit much. A sprain's an easy fix. 4 up. Ow! 5 days, and it'll be good as new. Ow! Damn it!
There was no honor in hunting wounded prey, and if there was no honor, then a serving of Citri was not an option. Yet.
Hold on. I need a break.
Citri stumbled, and Sinshiki obliged, letting the girl catch her breath.
I'm so embarrassed. I'm always chasing after Andy to keep him safe, but it's like he's totally immune to getting hurt. Well, hurt badly, you know. Kalai and I thought he drowned on his second day of Rhythm, only to find him singing with a lantel. Seriously, we can't take him anywhere without him doing something stupid, but I'm here 2 days, and this happens. Humans are surprisingly resilient.
It was a truth that seemed self-evident.
I know. Trust me, taking care of one isn't easy, and courting one is even worse.
Delicious hung her head miserably.
Honestly, sometimes I feel like I'm invisible. A successful hunt accommodates the habits of your quarry. At least you don't have sisters to worry about,
Sinshiki muttered. Citri's scent wafted in her nose, and she resisted the urge to take a bite from the ear draped over her head.
Perhaps you could talk to to your head jailer. Professor Warwick is a human. Oh, I don't know. That could be so embarrassing. Do you think he'd help?
Sinshiki blinked slowly, not having spared much thought on the matter before.
He has successfully married free, intelligent, and reasonably dangerous women. That's an interesting way to put it, but maybe. I mean, he is human, right? I'll probably never see him again after this week, so... when I was younger, I'd talk to my father, but even he thinks humans are a complete mystery. So, as long as I'm respectful, what could it hurt?
Memories of being pinned to the floor by a sword, ensnared by a net, swam to mind. Her family had been there, watching as she floundered under knickknacks. A mounted fish crooned about being taken to a river and dropped in the water. The embarrassment would linger in her nightmares, but only until she took Warwick's name.
Nothing permanent. You know, you're a great listener and so easy to talk to. Thank you for carrying me back all this way. I think we can go on now.
Citri nodded toward the commons. The clinic lay in one of the near corners.
You're a good friend. I went out for a snack, and now I feast on irony.
I lick you too, she mustered. Delicious hugged her before they set off again.
You're Vetica. Ow! It's pretty good. Ow! But you meant like, right? Fuck!
Puck's ears perked as they left the infirmary and slowly made their way down to board the Sea Lance. Satara shook her head at the dopey little dog. From the sound of it, it seemed everyone could use a drink as refuge from their current woes. Puck scrambled forward to loudly bark his head off at the intruders, as Satara pulled a bottle of 6-year-old tawny Oborodo and poured them all a glass. The nurse hadn't forbidden it, and it was a sailor's tradition. Aluntel came clomping in aboard first, followed by Kalai. Satara handed each of them a glass as they sat around the table, or the padded bench inside it. Satara was left holding 2 glasses, one for herself and one for Andy, who didn't appear.
Oh, by the goddesses! This day has been a trying mess.
Lord Aluntel's strident whine burst out as Puck hopped between Citri and Kalai to receive his usual tribute. His lordship took an ungentlemanly long pull on his glass.
You wouldn't believe... Oh my. Oh, is this a 6-year-old ruby? No, wait. The spice. Tawny, yes?
Satara smiled at Aluntel's complete distraction by her family's wine.
One that I helped make too.
Aluntel swallowed his glass before sipping it again.
I'm so glad the Gesserius label has been restored. Nothing else compares.
Aluntel raised his glass in a toast before treating the burgundy wine with the dignity it deserved. Satara took the bottle and refilled his glass before the man could ask for it.
Thank you, my lord.
She turned to look at Citri and her tiller-woman, who'd not been so distraught as to mistreat her family's label.
Either that or they know better by now.
They both gave her a friendly smile and a silent nod of thanks as she took a seat beside the girls, letting Aluntel have the run of the kitchen area.
So, how are you two getting along with your jailers?
Satara broke the silence to address her 2 friends.
Are you ready to make a break for open water yet?
Kalai set her glass down and grimaced.
Mine likes switching with her sister. I swear it's the 3rd most annoying thing ever.
Citri gave her foster sister a commiserating pat on the shoulder.
I like mine. Sefik gets it, you know? And Zenshiki is such a good listener. She's a complete natural at leaping, and she carried me all the way here.
Zatara snorted as she refilled Citri's glass and took a sip of her own. The red-haired Urbian girl raised her glass in thanks before taking a sip. Kalai hunched over onto the table.
Yeah, I kinda want to trade. Do you want doppelgangers?
Citri sniffed and turned her nose up.
No! Get your own new best buddies, you overgrown purple weed!
Kalai gave her foster sister a shove, which elicited what Zatara knew was a gentle tap from Citri's good foot to Kalai's shin. Zatara cleared her throat at the squawk of pain and jutted her tusks at the both of them.
I don't want to repair any more bulkheads from that girl kicking something.
Citri wasn't one of her crew, but she followed the rules aboard her boat. Usually. Both girls took up their glasses again, and the issue dropped.
What about you, Skipper? It's not hard to tell what you think of your jailer, but I'd like to hear it in your own words.
Kalai's question caused Zatara to purse her lips. The hangover from last night lingered. Andy had been willing to let the mob incident go, so she could too.
So long as she remains cordial, I can be cordial back.
Zatara took a sip to stop herself from saying anything unladylike.
On the other task, I may start carrying my sailing knife with me again.
Citri hissed in worry.
I don't think they'll let you up here, not after that incident with the attack.
Lord Alantar finally spoke back up, no longer distracted by the wine, or the sisters fighting amongst themselves. Did Andy give Professor Warwick that blanket he brought for him? He hasn't spoken to me about it.
Kalai canted ahead. I think so. Isn't he assigned to the professor's daughter?
Citri's smile brightened the entire cabin.
She seems nice.
Oh, the calamity! The wail from Alanto stopped them all dead in their tracks. The man looked pale and seemed on the verge of catching the vapours.
My lord?
Kalai asked worriedly. Lady Deshin, it's just that... Oh, sink me. The man was practically at a loss for words as Puck snuck from between the girls to beg for Alantal's attention. Zatara had a sinking feeling as storm clouds gathered around her.
Has she done something?
His lordship obviously divined her mood. Shaken, he picked the little white dog up and settled Puck in his lap, scratching his ears.
No, of course not. She's been a perfect lady, he protested. She's treated him with nothing but civility and grace.
Zatara blinked in rapid succession as the protective anger fell away. She looked at Kalai and Citri, who wore similar expressions of confusion.
Then what's the problem?
Zatara asked. The lordling sputtered, pausing in his ministrations of Puck, much to the little dog's chagrin.
Can't you see what's happening?
Citri cocked her ears back.
My lord, Annie's only doing what's expected of him.
I know, but he's been his new charming self and... Puck twisted to lick Alanto in the face, causing him to shoo the dog away. Citri was unable to suppress her giggles as Puck whined and held up a paw, acting as if he'd been hurt.
I think it's nice getting Andy out of his shell. He's been much happier, and he's been showing in really nice ways.
Zatara nodded at Citri's words knowingly.
He's healing, and the rules of the season are doing him good.
That's part of the problem, Lord Alantal pleaded breathlessly. We're in the home province, the seat of power for the whole Imperium. None of the ladies here are part of the season. They're not playing by the rules. I'm worried that one of them will try to take liberties, and then what will become of poor friend Andy?
Andy? Breaking the rules of the season? Breaking any rules these days?
Kalai asked, looking around at Zatara and Citri. Zatara twitched a warning eyebrow at Kalai and turned, determined not to face Alanto at the moment.
He's been so good at hiding. Could he be tempted to stay if one of these rich girls asked him to?
Zatara cleared her throat and looked down at Andy's unclaimed glass of Oborodo.
Andy needs stability. Ever since the hiatus of the main season events, he's been on the verge of going back to his old bad habits.
Zatara looked around at her friends and saw them nodding slowly in agreement.
He needs his routine back, or at least something that's familiar and comforting, Kalai offered sagely.
You think?
Zatara nodded emphatically. Of course I do, your lordship. Honestly, I think the human museum job Lord Warwick put him in is the best thing for him. You know how homesick he gets.
The man's face crumpled. Zatara was surprised by how unguarded his lordship had become around them. The man pouted as he gave in to Puck's pitiful me routine and hugged the little rascal again. I still worry this Lady Deshin might have ideas about him. You know how humans are portrayed. Zatara deliberately ignored the pointed looks from Citri and Kalai, choosing to focus on Alantal instead.
Andy's a big boy, your lordship.
The Mandy seemed to stew for a bit before pulling out his omnipad. Well, if it's a return to normalcy that he needs, then this USO dance the good professor is hosting will be just the thing. Citri and Kalai poked up at his words.
A dance? There's going to be an honest-to-goodness dance again? Is that allowed?
Zatara felt her heart sink again, but she said nothing. Lord Alantal canted his head to the side and replied gravely.
Lady Deshin's father is hosting. If anyone could host an event in spite of recent events, it would be him.
There was something off in the way that Lord Alantal had spoken. Zatara narrowed her eyes and folded her arms over her chest.
What do you mean by that, your lordship?
The man flushed, flustered by Zatara's question.
Well, I mean, is that
Even Citri was now giving him the eye, and now that he was the centre of attention, Zatara could see the sudden change in tack as he straightened up with all the dignity and gravitas he could manage, which, Zatara had to admit, was considerable.
Obviously, I meant that he's a gentleman at Empress Arika's Academy for Young Ladies. He's also in charge of the Marriage Fundamentals Seminar. It wouldn't exactly be a social event. Yes, that's it. It's part of a practical exam for the ladies in the course.
That sounds like fun. There hasn't been a ball in ages.
Trust Tshirt to see the best in everything, or simply get too excited to worry.
What kind of a dance?
And trust Kalai to be the practical one. The man's social graces and excitement formed a wall around whatever was disturbing him, and if Satara hadn't known better, she would have been completely taken in. It's a costume dance. We've been assigned costumes too. They look ever so cute. Here, I'll show you. Aluntar swiped something towards them, and all their omnipads pinged at once. Pulling hers out with the other girls, Satara frowned at the pictures of human women in frumpy hats and drab blue skirts. While the girls were studying the pictures, Satara scrolled ahead to see what Andy would be wearing.
Why do they get to look good, while we only look like washed-out wardens? They're boys.
Satara cast a glance at her omnipad, suddenly worried about him.
Has Andy seen this? Where is he, anyway?
Tshirt pulled her back to the moment.
Oh, that Desi girl took him out to lunch. I think they're going to some place called Human Food.
What? On low-tech worlds, it was easy to manipulate somebody into starting a fire and pinning it on them. That was when make it look like an accident was more of an afterthought. All this fixer stuff tended to require creative thinking, but Sashan had to admit, sometimes the extra rules were fun. A little challenge, befitting of the Imperium's next great fixers. Damn, the Stone Mountain clan looked good on such a list. Sashan didn't often smile, but she allowed herself a small one as she listened to the yells and gunfire from the front yard. This house had a pouchadillo infestation, which lent itself very well to make it look like an accident. Shouts drifted in from outside. She sent the others out to catch the little animals, though Shrek was miffed she couldn't eat them. Gore was busy casing the estate, though with no ready cash, Bogosi estates didn't have active security. There was also the matter of the existing fixers, though one needed to be strategic. They could eliminate Jara for slow right off the bat. But nature abhorred a power vacuum. It could attract someone too strong to deal with in their current state. Sashan imagined the crew taking bigger and bigger jobs, eliminating anyone else along the way. Did they film that shit? Would it help to put it on the datanet? In Alliance space, the Serona cartel had become folk heroes for their widely televised elimination of System Lord Agrazeb. There were likely a few widely hated public figures around here. It was the Imperium, after all. Shulvanti were naturally greedy and power-hungry, to a fault. A little greed and megalomania was admirable. After all, something had to make the galaxy go round. But the level at which it existed around here? A nice, juicy, noble family, maybe with connections to the interior. Good eating and good pickings. It didn't do to count your Pruga before they hatched, but Sashan imagined how that would go. Did they eat the family first, or the offending noblewoman? Among Pezrin, the choice was a sign of respect. Done right, a reputation for brutality could be a useful tool, but it was all how you leveraged it. So a nice accidental arson, an assassination or two, and some takeovers to say they were there. Gore so wanted to use the sniper rifle he'd stolen from the constabulary's evidence lockup, and now that they pulled out the weapons black box, it was untraceable and very illegal. Or even...
Oh, sometimes I'm really smart.
The Imperium had a pretty robust network of journalists, and what mercenary writer wouldn't want a chance to tag along for an awesome story? One of the great mysteries of the modern age of crime, 7 years later and some change, Shulvanti time. Even so, there was that little voice niggling at Sashan. That she was ambitious to a fault was not in question. That she thought very highly of herself and her crew, also not in question. But was she blind to their faults? Did she think they were too capable? Sashan washed these thoughts away with a nice little hand-rolled spikeweed joint and a glass of Goljalka. This was gonna be awesome. Tom looked over the list and tried to feel satisfied. Adding the IOTC girls into the sim wasn't the best for balance, but there were over 30 interior cadets, and Miv had told him that was on the small side. The academy was one of the best Shul had to offer. Just as Rhythm catered to young women, and men, thankfully, who showed real aptitude for the sciences, the academy had a focus all its own.
One didn't have to be the firstborn daughter of a noble house to get in. The academic standards were rigorous, but the girls who graduated could look forward to leading their houses someday. They tended to be political animals. Given the extra bodies, he split the nations into political and military slots, full with them a bit, then added some of the minor powers. The IOTC girls had drawn lots to get in, which helped to... So, these have the same name twice. Solani hung her head over his shoulder, which felt nice. Odd, since she was so much larger, but nice. Is that right? China, France and Italy? Yes, it got political, but they all flipped back and forth a little. Civil war, puppet governments, that sort of thing. What's special about them? Won't some of the girls feel shortchanged? She slipped her arms around him and squeezed. She wasn't as self-conscious about her artificial arm these days. Maybe it was going under the knife tomorrow, or whatever they did, but Lani had a sense of confidence about her. He laid a hand on her good arm and went down the list. Well, China was going for a civil war. It became an economic power later. Good food. I should teach Budin how to make dumplings. France? I remember them from the first sim. I thought they were a powerful empire. She hugged him again. Sorry, all the girls in the bunker are hoping for an inside scoop to figure the odds. I could give you my notes. Tom gazed over at Miv, who shrugged. The whole idea of an invisible audience of Death's heads watching had been a lot to chew on. And there were times he envied Death's other professors for their ignorance. It's not like anything comes out, right? No, that'd be great, thank you. She gave him a bear hug that made his ribs creak. I really am looking forward to seeing the girls again. It stinks that I won't be allowed out once I'm back on duty, but I do miss them. I want you to meet them too. It's all right. Tom leaned his chin on her arm. One of Lani's pod had been killed by the attack that crippled Desi, and keeping Lani's mind off things was no bad thing. You can want both things at the same time. I'll make you a copy later. That made her happy, and Miv gave him an approving smile before ducking back into her book. Reading was a passion she didn't have much time for during the semester, but a new novel from one of her favourite authors had come out, and she was making the most of the shell to devour it. Lani crushed him back against her cleavage, which did nice things for his morning. Desi had taken Andy out to lunch at Human Food. The promise of a cheeseburger with parmesan fries seemed to work wonders, though Desi had confided with Miv and Lani that she'd had a talk with Andre about acting like adults. She'd included him, though she'd become nervous whenever he asked a question. Miv had offered thoughtful advice, while Lani brought real parental terror to the conversation, like Arnold Schwarzenegger spending time as an agony aunt. Things seemed harmless enough. Desi and Andre were enjoying each other's company. They had a job and were being professional, and Desi learning that men could be friends was no bad thing. Hopefully Andre was getting as much in return. I should meet with all of them again. Which was his own problem. The dance was taking on a life of its own. Hundreds of boys were asking to attend, and the number was rising steadily. Mr. Aluntel had stepped in to handle costuming and dance, and after a few exchanges Tom let him have both. The young Vascon seemed uncertain about Jama, who guarded the Academy collection tenaciously. It gave Aluntel something to do, and he'd promised the dance club at Vrism would rise to the challenge. Which did nothing for the girls, but GIs with 2 left feet was a thing. As for the costuming, the Academy girls would be decked out in WASP uniforms from the Army Air Corps, while the Vrism girls got WAF uniforms from the RAF. While held here, the Vrism girls were bringing the men, so it seemed fair to deck them out appropriately. The English had endured Yanks who were overpaid, oversexed, and over here, so there was a nod to home court advantage, though the WAF uniforms looked like blue sacks. You couldn't have everything. The kitchen was handling a Shovanti dinner, or brunch for the Vrism students. Travel time by an orbital shuttle was short, but the time difference was still a bear. Human cuisine wouldn't be on the menu, but he corralled Budin into making something easy. Waffles with strawberries and whipped cream could do double duty as breakfast or dessert, which left one problem: the entertainment. Recordings felt wrong, and while they might not ruin a suspension of disbelief for the Shovanti, it would trash the atmosphere. He made a note to ban Omnipads from the event, as Solani gave him another squeeze. Sorry, too much multitasking. France sort of became known for fashion, food, and weird cars. Italy had food and, well, Good food. Lani pulled back and looked at him suspiciously. That's it? Food and food? That's no way to organize empires. It worked for the Italians. They have very good food. Miv glanced up from her book. I love you, Tom, but until you learn to cook like that, part of me will always belong to that cafe in Venice. Tom cocked his head dramatically. I beg your pardon? Miv disappeared behind her omnipad again. Fine. If you're going to beg, I shall ask Kalira to pardon you. Very funny. Miv waved a hand airily. She hasn't had gelato, so I can probably pull it off. At which point, his omnipad rang.